We are back for the breakdown. Now, I said before we went to break that we were going to talk about, whether or not a certain type of movie has a bad or good influence over people, and I'm talking about Disney movies, and not the ones so much these days, because, now we've kind of gotten away from the typical, well, there's a princess, and then there's a prince, and the princess has to be saved, and, all of that. But, the old school ones. The ones that more kind of, I grew up with and, everybody's been growing up with since, Snow White, since they first started off their feet and just, making everything all better. And it also trains us to think in terms of, a movie and kind of expect our lives to be like a Disney movie, which, would be there's all this, drama and conflict and it's all, really intense, and then there's something huge that happens made okay because at the end of the day we can be a wife to somebody and end of the movie. So as a result we kind of go searching for that drama, and this tends to affect girls more than guys because girls typically watch more Disney movies than guys do, the older Disney movies. And so we go searching for that kind of drama, and because we're kind of expecting it, because when you're that young you're like, oh, okay, life is kind of like a movie. You don't go and try to actually slay a dragon, but you expect the intensity to be kind of the same. Now, I'm a hopeless romantic, and as I said earlier, and one of the big reasons why I am such a big hopeless romantic, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, is because of Disney movies. I watched a lot of them when I was young, and I absolutely loved the thought of, like Sleeping Beauty. Like, she's this princess, but she has to be kept hidden away, and then she does actually meet her prince, but it's like, oh my god, they can't be together even though they don't know that they're already arranged, and there's that kind of like secret drama. This person knows this person knows this, and of course, they end up together after the guy does something incredibly heroic, and so we kind of start thinking that guys need to do things that are incredibly heroic. And from Disney movies, we kind of get the impression that we need to be the ones who are doted on, and we need to be the ones who kind of like sit back while the guy goes and like saves the day. And I would say that this isn't so much a problem anymore, because Disney movies have changed with Disney Pixar. They're not all about princesses anymore, except for the whole Princess and the Frog that just came out, but that's kind of a different kind of an exception, really. But you still have, the old Disney movies are still going to be shown to girls growing up, and it's still going to be something that will forever be, shown to girls growing up, because that's just how people work. It's like, oh, we had these movies that were absolutely amazing, I'm going to pass it on to my children, and so it just kind of keeps going in the cycle. Now, am I saying that Disney movies are like the incarnate of all evil? Of course I am. No, they're not. They're not. And it's not going to, it's going to affect some girls more than others, but it's something that I think parents kind of need to be aware of, because we think, oh, Disney movies, those are absolutely harmless, and those couldn't, possibly have any, because, there's no drugs or, alcohol or any, sexual innuendo, heaven forbid. So they've got to be perfectly safe. But not really, not totally the case. Now, every situation is going to be different, but I can totally say that I am a hopeless romantic mostly because of watching Disney movies way back when. I still even watch them now, and a lot of times it just didn't paint the most kind of effective picture. Now, not every movie needs to have this, good, perfect message with these good, perfect people, women who can stand on their own 2 feet and be their own Prince Charming and all of that feminist stuff. Like, we need that, but that doesn't have to be in every movie. But it kind of wasn't in Disney for the longest time. And of course, that kind of reflects the times that it came out of. Because, back then, you had feminine mystique going on. And just women were not in the same place then as they are now. I mean, that's why we have, like, pretty cool and groovy, like, female heroes. Like, Hercules. Hercules. Meg. In Hercules, obviously I'm talking about the animated one. I mean, Meg was, wonderful. She was kind of corrupt a little bit, and, at the end, Hercules did have to go and save the day. But she was kind of a badass in her own right, and she was, like, really sarcastic, very, very smart, and still totally fell in love with, the main. He wasn't actually a prince, but, half god kind of puts you on that same realm, with a prince. But she was still, someone he could kind of, like, look up to a bit more. And she didn't come around. Hercules came out in, 1997? And so, good female role models, especially in this day and age, are really, 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 really needed. And so, I wouldn't say don't ever show, your kid like a Snow White or, all the old classics and, Sleeping Beauty and all that. But just, kind of work in some more clearer, positive messages in with that you don't have to sit around and wait for a Prince Charming, or you don't always, need a guy, and you can kind of solve your own problems. You don't have to be a damsel in distress, basically, is the message that kind of needs to get out to girls more these days. You do not have to be a damsel in distress. That is not your main purpose in life. Which is something that a lot of girls tend to fall back on. And, I see it all the time. And if you know what to look for, you can really see it happen a lot of times. Just like in friends' lives and people's lives, it's still very, very apparent. And Disney movies might not be the complete reason as to why this happens, but it's a factor. It's one of the things that just does not help with girls' image of themselves, especially at such a young age. And they will keep watching the Disney movies all while they grow up. I still watch them now. I still watch a lot of them now. Not nearly as often as I did back then. But I still, you pop one in every now and then because you're feeling nostalgic. And so it'll be something that constantly comes back up. And whether or not girls are realizing it, whether they're, 3 or they're getting into their teenage years, there's still messages that sink in, and whether or not they're aware of it, they kind of follow those messages, and that just kind of creates a vicious cycle, because then they'll grow up, they'll have loved Disney movies, they'll show it to their kids. You get where I'm going with this. So really, just be careful. Well, not really be careful. I don't want to say be careful, because that implies that, Disney is, like, all danger. Kind of like how people, were implying that Disney was just, like, all white all the time, which is something that, they tried to disprove with Princess and the Frog now. They're like, yeah, it's about time we had a princess that wasn't Caucasian. So they ended up making Princess and the Frog, which kind of actually, to me, I'm white, but it kind of seems like I'd be a little offended if if I was a black person watching Princess and the Frog, just because they made the whole, like, Louisiana thing, and I'm like, you're kind of playing to stereotypes a little bit, kind of, maybe. So, step in the right direction, but they kind of have a little bit farther to go with that. So that's the Disney discussion. We kind of got a bit off topic to more racial issues there at the end, but that's Disney, and you can agree with me, you can disagree with me. It's obviously completely up to you, but that's just something that I've been thinking about over the past week, and something I just kind of wanted to bring up and kind of talk through, and take it or leave it. That's what this whole show is anyway. Take it or leave it. Meanwhile, while you're deciding on whether or not you're going to take it or leave it, I have to go to another break. But when we come back, we're going to talk about another topic, and I'm going to love on this topic and also hate on this topic, because there's some really, really good things about this type of movie, and there's some really, really bad things about this type of movie. And I'm probably going to lose it at some point in the next segment, so you really want to stay tuned for that. But until then, I am going to play some lovely promos for you, and I'll be back here in a few minutes.
Power Hour for hip-hop, R&B, the history,